I watched my son hand his mother-in-law the keys to a gleaming $60,000 BMW, while a piggy bank with $3 lonely slid toward me like a joke, and I smiled because I already knew where the real keys were hidden. By sunrise, the neighborhood would hear a scream, not from me but from the woman who thought I mattered least, when the gift on her doorstep proved that kindness can sign papers, and papers can move trucks. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. The living room in North Raleigh smelled like pine and cinnamon oil the way gift shops do when they want you to forget the price tags. I stood by a picture window with a view of Denise Graham's circular driveway, where a silver BMW 3 Series caught every lick of a neighbor's icicle lights and threw them back like confetti. My son, Tyler, 29, and eager to impress people who graded love like a credit score, lifted the little piggy bank from a gift bag and slid it across the rug to me. "A memory," he said, smiling. "For all the coins, Mom, there were 3 nickels by the weight of it. The kind of joke you make when you've forgotten who pulled grocery lines off your account and who paid. The extra semester when financial aid slipped." I opened my mouth and felt my jaw tremble. Then I did the thing that saved me more times than any prayer. I counted. 4 beats in, 4 beats out. I closed the tiny rubber plug beneath the pig's belly and nodded like I'd been handed a family heirloom. "Thank you," I said. "It's cute." Across the coffee table, Denise's bracelets clicked. She wore an oatmeal sweater and an expression you give to door-to-door salespeople. Beside her, Brooke, my daughter-in-law, turned her face toward the BMW as if the car were a mirror, and she wanted to see her best side. When Tyler tossed the second key fob, it arced high and easy, and Denise laughed. For me? In a way that had already decided the answer. I lifted the pig and felt the heft of the 3 coins. They made a damp little clink inside the ceramic belly. Tyler did not notice, because the room had rotated to put him at the center. But then, I saw the white folder in my tote bag, and it steadied me better than the wall. Inside it was the thing he'd signed on May 2nd, 2022, at my kitchen table in Garner while a peach cobbler cooled, and he promised he'd never put me in a bad spot. It was a promissory note for $24,000 at 4%, the loan that kept Triangle Duct Pros LLC alive long enough to book the airline warehouse contract in Morrisville. There was a second document beneath it, our security agreement, and a 1-page printout from the North Carolina Secretary of State. The UCC-1 financing statement had my name in the secured party box and his in the debtor box, and one neat sentence that fewer people read than should. All after acquired personal property, including motor vehicles titled in debtor's name or in any entity debtor controls. I had felt silly filing it at the time. Who files on her own child? A NICU nurse turned compliance coordinator who has watched people crumble when they think rules are optional. That's who. A mother who knows leverage beats shouting. "Let me take your coat to the bedroom," Brooke said. And without waiting for an answer, she lifted the sleeve off my shoulder, polite and practiced as a hotel clerk. I left after coffee cake, pig in my tote like a silly trophy, and said to my son in the foyer, "I love you, drive safe." He leaned in, hugged quick, and asked if I could still cover the cell plan for him and Brooke until March. I said yes because I had already decided to cancel it at dawn. Except, I didn't sleep. I set the pig beside my stapler and pulled the white folder out like a first aid kit. I logged into the Secretary of State site and confirmed my filing hadn't lapsed. I reread the line we'd both initialed. No luxury purchase over $1,000 while the note remains, unpaid, without written consent. Default equals immediate balance due. I remembered his words, "Mom, that's fine. I'll be square by Christmas. First 5 big jobs, straight to you." My phone said 12:37 a.m. Beneath the documents, there was the lease we'd signed in June for the carriage house behind my place in Garner, month to month at $1,050 because I was helping them get on their feet. Behind that, a ledger of transfers and paid bills with neat amounts and dates. Groceries on my card, 3 months of their car insurance last winter, and a one-time $2,900 when their deposit ran short. The room was quiet enough I could hear the old HVAC kick and rattle in the wall. I pulled my laptop closer and drafted a letter of default with a right to cure by January 5, 10 days out. Simple, clear. I printed it on the good paper I use for reference letters. Then I drafted a termination of their month-to-month tenancy, 30 days as the lease allowed, ending January 31. I printed 2 copies and signed both. No extra words, no apology. One problem: leverage works best when you can see it move. Denise's subdivision, Willow Bend, runs like a high school with bylaws. I know because I'm their volunteer treasurer, a favor I took when my friend Evelyn stepped down. Every visitor's car registers by midnight or risks towing at owner's expense. People say that rule is mean until a moving truck blocks the fire lane and nothing can get through. I checked the portal, no visitor pass for a BMW, and the security camera photo of the entrance showed it came through at 8:41 p.m. with temporary tags. The system gave me a timestamp. The bylaw gave me a lever. I called the contracted tow company's after-hours line and left a message as the HOA treasurer. Visitor without registration parked overnight on Hawthorne Loop. Nearest lamppost WB-12, silver BMW with temp tag. The dispatcher called back in 8 minutes. Earliest we can hit it is after 8 a.m., she said. No holidays in our contract. I thanked her and wrote the time, 8:09 a.m., on a sticky note. Until I slid the piggy bank into a gift bag from last year and tucked the default notice and the termination letter in a red envelope. I addressed it to Tyler and Brooke, printed their names crisp and cool, and taped a peppermint candy to the front. Then I added a third sheet, a 1-page snapshot of the UCC one with highlighter on after acquired motor vehicles. The line looked like a fuse. At 7:12 a.m., the sky was the color of cold dishwater. I drove to Willow Bend and parked 2 blocks down. The silver BMW sat in the curve of the driveway like a promise. Denise's front blinds were triangular with the shape of somebody peeking out and stepping away, peeking and stepping. I put the red envelope on Tyler's front stoop, beside a little potted spruce, and pressed their Ring camera so the timestamp would match. I didn't smile. Cameras flatten joy into smugness. At 8:19, I heard the low, frog-throated diesel of the tow truck and felt my heart pound so hard I pressed my palm to my sternum the way you do when you're about to sneeze and want to hold it back. The driver did his checks, snapped the photos you need these days, and hooked the rear. There's a small space between quiet and metal. When the hitch tightened, the BMW tilted and the alarms chirped. Brooke opened the front door in socks. "No, that's my mother's!" she yelled, and the word "no" rippled through the entryway like it had been waiting all year. Tyler bounded after her, barefoot, and the 2 of them exploded the morning with a color of panic I have only heard once before, the day a pediatric code ran long and everyone forgot to breathe. Neighbors peeked. Denise ran out last, robe clutched, hair loose, shouting, "Who called this? That's my car. My son-in-law gifted it to me." The driver didn't bother to answer. His clipboard had a copy of the HOA contract and a photo of the sign at the entrance that said, in black letters, "Registered vehicles only 12 a.m. 6 a.m. He pointed at it like a coach pointing at a playbook and said, "Talk to your HOA." My Ring camera message landed on their phone at 8:21 a.m. Brooke opened the red envelope, flipped to the boldface sections, and her voice climbed the scale like a police siren. I didn't stay to listen to words try to find their footing. I drove away because victory isn't victory if you stand in it like a child who wants credit. But then, the text started. First, "Tyler, are you serious? Over a car?" Then, "Brooke, you humiliated my mother." Then Denise, who had never texted me before, "You're a petty woman." I placed my phone face down, drank water, and wrote a single reply to my son, "Cure by January 5 per the note, or I will move forward per the security agreement. Moving forward includes your tenancy." I kept it clinical so I wouldn't swivel into anger and say the piece that breaks things, "I raised you." At noon, I called the carrier and removed Tyler and Brooke from my cell plan, effective that day. It felt brutal and necessary, like pulling a splinter that got so deep you have to use a needle. I printed the confirmation and slid it into the folder behind the lease. The first 2 nights after Christmas, I slept hard for the first time in months. It is amazing what choosing a direction does to your pulse. On December 29th, I received a voicemail from BMW of Cary. A polite man explained they couldn't complete the title transfer on the 3 Series because the cashier's check came from Triangle Duct Pros, LLC. And without a corporate resolution authorizing a gift, we need the member to sign an affidavit. I listened twice and saved it. One problem, I didn't know if the car was titled to Tyler yet, and the rope I wanted to pull ran through that hole. I drove to the courthouse and asked the clerk what I needed to subpoena the dealership's invoice for small claims. She handed me a one-page instruction sheet and circled a line. Documents may be requested pre-trial via Rule 45 subpoena. I thanked her and wrote the $96 filing fee on my sticky note where the towing time had been. I mailed the notice of default to Tyler and Brooke and walked a copy to their stoop for eyes on delivery. On January 5th, no payment arrived, no apology either. New Year's had sharpened their hurt into something performative. They posted photos of Denise kissing the hood of the BMW and captioned it, "Family First," as if I were an intruder trying to ruin a party. People liked and hearted because people love a clean villain. Except, the calendar doesn't care about captions. On January 9th, I filed in small claims court for $24,000 principal, $1,418 interest accrued, and costs. I stapled my exhibits into a neat packet: the note, the security agreement, the UCC1, the right to cure letter, screen captures of Tyler's payments, and then the absence of them, the saved voicemail from the dealership. I wrote a short, plain statement. Debtor purchased a luxury vehicle with business funds while in default, then attempted to transfer it to avoid creditor. I requested a writ of execution if judgment entered. I mailed a copy to Tyler at the carriage house and to their Willow Bend address. 2 nights later, they showed up at my porch at 10:03 p.m. Tyler knocked hard. I let the porch light do its work, switched my phone to record, and opened only the storm door. He said, "We need to talk," and his voice had the ache of a boy who scrapes a knee, except the scrape came from his own choices. "Court date is February 27, I said evenly. "We'll talk then." Brooke's eyes were glassy, rage and fear sitting together in the same seat. "You're trying to take our car and our home," she said. "You're late on neither," I said. "Right now, you are tenants with 30 days' notice, and Tyler is a debtor with 10 days past cure. He'll become a judgment debtor only if the magistrate agrees with me." "Magistrate?" Brooke mocked, like the word itself was small. "Wake County," I said. "Room 1B, 9 a.m. I squeezed the handle until the metal cut a crescent into my palm. Tyler looked away first. He and Brooke left, and I called the non-emergency line to log the visit. I slept with the white folder on the chair beside my bed. Until the midpoint complication I didn't plan for arrived like a package with my name misspelled. My boss at the hospital asked if I could pick up 2 more compliance audits in January because a surveyor had COVID, and the double shift put a bruise under my eye that concealer couldn't cover. I said yes because extra money feels like armor when you're walking into court against your own child, but the hours meant I was late to my friend Evelyn's birthday and forgot her card on the counter. I started to wonder if my whole life had become documents and the sound of my printer fanning warm paper. Then a letter arrived from the Department of Revenue addressed to Tyler at my house, because that's where his LLC was first registered. The letter said a quarterly withholding report hadn't been filed. I took a photo and texted it to him with a single line, "You need to handle this." He didn't respond. 3 hours later, Brooke posted a photo of herself at a day spa with the caption, "Self-Care Day. Leverage is quiet until it speaks." On February 27, the small claims courtroom smelled like old carpet and hand gel. The magistrate wore a plain suit and a face that looked like it had seen everything twice. Tyler sat at the defendant's table in a navy blazer he wore to job interviews when he wanted to appear like someone else. Brooke's heel crossed and uncrossed, impatience leaking through her posture. Denise didn't come. I introduced myself, stated my claim. I used my nurse voice, the one that calms new parents at 3 a.m., and produced the promissory note with Tyler's signature, where the loop in the Y of his name always dips low. I handed in the security agreement and the UCC one. I played the BMW dealership voicemail off my phone and handed over the transcript I'd typed the night before. I showed the activity on the business account, where a $59,842 cashier's check went to BMW of Cary on December 20th, 4 days before Christmas, and the absence of any payments to me since August. The magistrate looked at Tyler. "Did you sign this note?" Tyler's face hardened. "Yes, sir." "Did you purchase a BMW while in default?" It was for my mother-in-law, he said, as if that explained arithmetic. The magistrate leaned back. Sir, your creditor doesn't have to consent to you transferring assets to someone else when you're in default. The law isn't judgment about gifts, it's numbers. Brooke's heel stopped. Her lips went white at the edges. The magistrate wrote slowly. He read the order into the record. Judgment for plaintiff in the amount of $24,000 principal, $1,418 interest, $171 court costs. He looked at me. You can request a writ of execution at the clerk's window. People sometimes think court is a thunderclap. It isn't. It's a stamp and a sheet of paper with your name in the right box. I walked out with a writ that read Wake County Sheriff's Office at the top, and for the first time since December 24, I let out the breath I'd been holding. But then, a deputy called 2 days later about levy options. We can do a bank levy if we find where he keeps funds, or vehicles titled in his name, he said. You got anything on the car? I told him about the dealership voicemail and the invoice and how title transfer was pending. He grunted. If the title's still in his name or in the LLC he controls, we can levy. If it already shifted to the mother-in-law, we'll need more. I faxed him the invoice and the UCC one. I felt like a fax machine from 1998 and like the world was finally tilting toward me. On March 12th, the deputy called again. Title search shows the BMW still got the temp reg to Triangle Duct Pros, he said. No transfer logged. You want us to pick it up? Please, I said, and swallowed so I wouldn't say thank you like he was a magician. He scheduled a levy for March 15th at 10 a.m. at Denise's address. I did not plan to go. I told myself that a person can have closure without a front row seat. Then I drove to a coffee shop 2 blocks from Willow Bend at 9:30 and sat where the window framed the street like a television. The sheriff's Tahoe rolled slow. A flatbed slid in behind it. The deputy knocked. The screaming came again, not theatrical this time, but primal, and for a second I worried about Brooke's throat, how raw it would be after this season of noise. The deputy stayed steady, voice low, papers in hand, like someone who has done this 50 times and never once enjoyed it. The flatbed lifted the BMW, and Denise clutched her robe as if a gust might take her with the car. Tyler stood on the lawn, hands planted on his hips, and I saw a boy who used to search my face when he couldn't find the word for what he wanted. I almost got out of my chair. Except, there is a difference between mercy and allowing someone to keep thinking the fire is decorative. I paid attention to the deputy's follow-up call instead. The car went to auction April 10th. The net proceed applied to the judgment was $28,460. You're paid, the deputy said. We'll send surplus to the debtor per statute. I thanked him and sat down on my steps and cried where no one could see me. Being paid didn't feel like winning. It felt like bleeding finally stopping. The rest happened in quieter clicks. Tyler and Brooke moved out of the carriage house on January 29th before the deadline, an early act I counted as grace. They left it clean except for a drawer full of takeout menus, a little archaeology of their year. I listed it at market rate, $1,480, and a young teacher with a laugh like a bell brought me a cashier's check and asked if she could put a small herb garden on the porch. I said yes and remembered how easy that word can be when the person across from you understands boundaries. In May, Tyler called. The number popped up with a city code I didn't recognize, and I almost let it go to voicemail. I answered because sometimes love is picking up the phone. He said, quiet and strange, I took a job in Atlanta. Full-time, benefits. No more LLC. I said good. A steady job is a clean floor. It's something my own mother used to say, and I heard her in my mouth and did not mind. There was a long pause where the line hummed like a held note. I'm sorry, he said. For the piggy bank. For all of it. I said, thank you. I did not tell him that apology is a bridge you cross alone first. I told him, if you want to rebuild, I'll meet you on the other side, but I will not walk it for you. Brooke didn't call. Denise sent no more texts. The only time I saw her after the levy was in the cereal aisle at Harris Teeter. We both looked away like strangers who shared a secret that wasn't romantic but intimate in its own way. How ugly grown-up consequences can look in daylight. I kept one habit from the hard months. On the first Saturday of each month, I make tea, pull the white folder from the drawer, and scan the ledger, not to obsess but to remind myself how money tells a story. In June, I took the piggy bank down and shook it. The 3 coins clinked like they were ashamed. I didn't throw them away. I slid 3 quarters in with them so the sound would change. A different story can use the same container. Every now and then I drive past Willow Bend on my way to work. The BMW is long gone. There's a practical crossover in the drive now, and I allow myself to hope that means someone in that house began to choose better. Hope can be a kind of bookkeeping too. I have learned this. A smile is not surrender when you've done your math. It's a receipt, stamped and filed, proof that you understood the joke and decided to write the punchline yourself.